Hello and welcome to today's video. We are nearly in December and that means it's time for Advent. Now, when I was a kid, Advent calendars were something that were just for kids. And I must admit, I think my sister and I did have an Advent calendar till we left home. And my kids also had an Advent calendar till they left home. I think I may have done it first year of university and then I stopped it. But these days, Advent's calendars seem to be for everyone. There are loads of different varieties, not just the plain chocolate ones. You can get beauty ones, skincare ones, stitch markers, yarn, all kinds of fun things in Advent calendars these days. So as we are nearly in December, I thought I would do a little bit of a video talking about some of the things to think about if you're thinking about getting an Advent calendar, what time of year is best to get one, and just some of the pros and cons of getting an Advent calendar. If you are new here, my name is Anniken. I design knitting patterns. I teach knitting workshops online and in person, and I sell yarn through our website yarnaddict.co.uk. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. And if you have any views on anything I'm going to talk about, and yarn Advent calendars in particular, do leave me a comment down below with your advice or comments or views. Everything is welcome. So today I wanted to talk about Advents, yarn Advents specifically. You can also get stitch marker Advent calendars and probably other yarn related Advent calendars as well. I don't know. I've only seen yarn and stitch marker ones. Yarn Advent calendars have been around for a few years now and they seem to get more and more popular every year. And my first one for 2023 has arrived. And so I thought I would chat about it. Some of the pros and cons, some of the things you might want to think about. Earlier this year, or it might be the end of last year, I think it was in January this year, I posted a video called Advent Calendars, Are They Worth It? Where I talk a little bit about whether getting an Advent calendar is really worth it, considering the cost. So if you want to look at that, I will link it below and also at the end of this video. I may cover some of the same points in this video, but I'm going to try not to just repeat what I said last year. This is more about how to choose an Advent calendar and some of my pros and cons and tips and advice on how to help you choose which Advent calendar to go for. So yarn Advent calendars, because they're mostly hand dyed. I think some of the bigger yarn companies may do them as well, but I would say most of the ones that you see on social media are hand dyed, and that do make them a little bit more expensive because they're very labor intensive, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later on as well. So it's important to consider whether you're really going to want one, what you're going to do with it, and whether it'll fit your budget. So I got my first yarn Advent calendar 2 years ago in 2021. I kept seeing them come out. Most indie dyes probably launched theirs in spring and summer, and I kept seeing them come out and I was really tempted, but I don't like thinking about Christmas till preferably December, maybe November if I have to. I will usually, if we're going to Norway at Christmas, I will usually book that trip in August, September time. But when it comes to actual Christmas arrangements and stuff, I don't really want to think about it too early. So ordering an Advent calendar in March is just something I don't want to think about. And also they are quite expensive, and that's what's put me off in the past. But 2 years ago, we got to the end of November, I was seeing on social media, mainly on Instagram, seeing loads of people receiving their Advent calendars, indie dyes sharing that Advent calendars were arriving with their customers, and I was having a serious amount of FOMO, fear of missing out. And then one indie dyer I follow, I think I'd only bought one skein of yarn from her before, so it wasn't somebody I shop from regularly, but she posted in her Instagram stories that all the advent calendars that she'd sent out had arrived and she had some spares, and if anyone was interested they would go to first come first person to contact her, and she would make sure they got shipped to get to you for December the 1st. So I immediately messaged her and said, yes, I'll take one. They were 10-gram mini skeins, sock yarn, so it was a little bit cheaper because they were 10 grams rather than 20 grams. I would say most advent calendars seem to be 20 grams, or I guess also a lot of indie does probably give you a choice between 10 and 20 grams. So I got one 2 years ago. I had a plan to make a shawl and try and open it every day and make a shawl as I went along. That plan didn't work out, and then I ended up going to Norway 2 weeks before planned because of COVID situation at the time. So I didn't really do much with it, and it's actually gone into my scrappy granny stripes blanket, which if you follow me regularly you may have seen. Then last year I decided to be a bit more organized by getting an advent calendar. So I had, over the Christmas 2021 or December 2021, I've been keeping an eye on the indie dyers when they were sharing what was in their advent calendars throughout the month. I was kind of keeping an eye on the ones that I liked, and I kind of earmarked one or two that I quite liked. And then the first one I saw out of the ones that I had earmarked was Botanical Yarns, and I ordered their advent calendar because I liked their mood board. And I don't know, I can't remember when I ordered it, but it was probably like March time, and I paid in installments. I'll come back to the payment issue later on because that's quite important to bear in mind. And then maybe a couple of months later, I can't remember, Orchidine Luxury Yarns posted her advent calendars, and I really like her yarn and her dyeing methods and her colours, so I ordered her, and I decided I wanted to get the Mulberino base, or the merino and silk base. So I ordered that, and again decided to pay in installments because then it doesn't seem quite so expensive. And then Spectrum Fibre, who I also love, decided to come out with an advent calendar, but hers was a half an advent calendar, so it was 12 days. I think a lot of people were doing it as like a 12 days of Christmas thing. She actually sent them out, I think they arrived like end of October, early November. So I opened mine straight away and cast them for a design because I really wanted to design a couple of advent patterns. That's kind of why I decided to get an advent calendar, because I wanted to design some advent patterns. So I got mine from Spectrum Fibre, I think it was early November. I immediately opened it, I filmed it so I could put it into my regular Vlogmas videos, and then I designed and knitted a brioche wrap. And I tried to be, if I shared photos in my Instagram stories, I was subtle about it, but I tried not to share too much of the colour, and I didn't tag Spectrum Fibre or say what yarn I was using, because obviously I didn't want to spoil the fun for everyone. And then I actually finished probably right at the end of November, maybe early December, and my tech editor got the pattern turned around really quickly, and I released the pattern in December last year. So this is the Fantasy Brioche wrap. It's quite long, and I think that's where it started. I used 10 out of the 12 mini skeins because there was a couple kind of orangey ones that I didn't like, so I took those out. And then I used a solid grey colour as my second colour. So this is 10, 20 grams, 200 grams, 400 grams it took to make this shawl. It is really big. You can make it smaller by making it a bit shorter because it is quite long. You can also use regular mini skeins or leftovers, or even full skeins to make it. It doesn't have to be mini skeins, and it doesn't have to be an advent calendar. So I will link that pattern below. And then the other two advent calendars I opened, but I didn't do anything about it. I had plans, vague ideas, but then in the summer I decided I wanted to design another pattern to get it out in time for this year's Yarn Advents. So I designed my poinsettia blanket, which I'm about to release as I'm filming this. I'm filming this 2 days, I think, before I release this pattern. So when this video is out, this pattern will be available. And I have a video where I show you how to join these squares together. And in that video, you can also see the colors and all the squares a bit better, because I also include a little clip where I just show you all the whole blanket basically. So I will link that below as well, and at the end of this video. This is poinsettia, and for this I used my Botanical Yarns advent calendar. So Botanical Yarns was a fade. It was like 6 fades, no, 4 fades of 6 mini skeins. So there were 4 fades, 6 mini skeins in each fade. So yeah, really like it. I designed these individual squares and then join them together. So the fun thing about this is that you can join as many and few squares as you like and make it anything from a scarf to a shawl to a king-size blanket, depending on how much yarn you have available. So if you get more than one advent calendar, you can join several together, obviously depending on the colors and things like that. This is sock yarn, by the way, because all the ones I got last year were basically sock yarn, 4-ply fingering weight yarn. So that pattern is available now, and I will link both of these patterns below this video. And then the Orchidean Luxury Yarn one I haven't done anything with yet. I have plans for it, I just haven't had time to start it. So that will be on my list of things to knit, maybe in December this year, maybe early next year. It just depends on what else crops up in terms of deadlines and things like that. So that's what I've done in terms of advents so far. This year I've got 2 advents, one from Truly Hooked, which is sock yarn, which has arrived. Obviously I haven't opened it yet, and one from Yarn Unique, which has not arrived yet, and that's DK. So I expect that will arrive fairly soon. Okay, so let's talk about what you can actually knit with an advent calendar, and will you actually knit with it. So you need to read the Indie Dye's description of their advent calendars. Some Indie Dyes offer several different types of advent calendars, so several different kind of color themes. So Yarn Unique, I think is Yarn Unique. The one I'm getting, which is DK Yarn, is a neon one, I think, but I think she's also done one that's called Frosted Berries, I think. I went for the neon one. So we'll see what that's like. So different dyes may have more than one option, some may do one option. But you need to think about the fact that you're going to get 24 mini skeins, either 10 or 20 grams. They may all be different colours and just random, or they may all be in like a fade or some kind of cohesive colour story, if you like. So you need to think about that and think if that's the kind of thing you like to knit with. If you mainly prefer solid, fairly neutral colours, you may find an indie dye who's doing like a neutrals advent calendar, but most of the ones I've seen tend to be a little bit brighter and a bit more variation in colour, if you like. So you may not be that keen on an advent calendar, or it might push you out of your comfort zone and force you or encourage you to work with something that you wouldn't normally buy if you were just buying yarn for yourself. Obviously the problem is that you won't see the colour till you actually open it, and you may open it and love the colours, you may open it and absolutely hate it. And then what do? You can obviously try and sell it after Christmas, but you may not get all your money back if you try and sell it. So I noticed last year as well, a lot of indie dyers were selling pre-order versions of the advent calendars after Christmas. So if you missed that on the advent calendar, you could order it in January and they would dye up another set if you like. There would seem to be quite a few indie dyers who were doing that last year. Obviously you can't guarantee that'll happen, but a lot of indie dyers were doing that. So if you see one you really like, then you could always message that indie dyer and say, would you be able to dye a set for me? So do you like surprises? If you're the kind of person who do not like surprises, then I don't think an advent calendar would be for you. If you love surprises and you are fairly open to different types of colours, your colour the type of colours you like are fairly varied, then you probably would enjoy an advent calendar. But if you like to know what you're going to spend your money on, then I'm not sure what an advent calendar is really going to be for you, because it is a surprise. You won't know what it is. Like my Yarn Unique one is neon, that's all I know. Will you actually knit with a yarn advent? So you get, say it's 20 grams, so you're going to get 24 20-gram mini skeins. That's 480 grams. It may be enough to knit a sweater if it's a 4-ply fingering weight sock yarn. Depending on your size, it would probably just about be enough for me, I think. I might have to put in a solid coloured or like a complementary coloured skein in there to make sure it went far enough, but it might just be enough. But it would either be kind of like a fade or stripes or some kind of variation depending on what you knit with it. And that's not everyone's cup of tea, not everyone's taste. So if you prefer things that are knitted with solid colours, then knitting a garment in an advent calendar yarn might not be your thing. Also, if you're not going to knit a garment, what else are you going to knit? Most of the patterns I see for advent calendar yarns are shawls, and they tend to be quite big. If you're going to use all your yarn, so if you get 20 grams, 480 grams of sock yarn or 4-ply fingering weight yarn is a lot for a shawl. It does make a really big shawl. So that's one thing to bear in mind, is that you may only use half of it and maybe half of each skein and then have lots of leftovers. What are you going to do with that? Are you going to feel bad if you end up binning that? Is there something else you can use it for? So that's also worth bearing in mind. There's also patterns of blankets, which is easier to use a pole with, but it may not make a blanket that's big enough. Like my poinsettia blanket is big enough that I can kind of use it when I'm sitting in my chair knitting in the evening. It will go kind of from my chest to the floor. You know, it's big enough for that. It's not big enough to cover my double king size. My king size bed is too small for that. It's not even big enough for a single bed. So it's worth bearing that in mind. If I wanted it big enough to be like a bedspread, I would have to add yarn to it and make it bigger. So that's worth bearing in mind as well. Look around at the kind of patterns that are available and see if that's the kind of thing that you would like to make. Otherwise, there's no point getting an advent calendar. What does your budget allow? Advent calendars can be quite expensive because they're very time consuming. The yarn, I think most indie dyers now buy their yarn as mini skeins, so they don't have to split 100-gram skeins into mini skeins, but they have to soak it all, prep it for dyeing. And I saw one indie dyer in the summer who was dyeing her advents, and she said that she ended up opening each skein up and doing either replacing the ties. So skein before it's dyed has to be tied in at least 3 places, possibly 4, because if it's only tied in 1 or 2 places, it could end up quite tangled. So the more times it's tied, the less tangled it's likely to get. Then you have to soak it, dye it, rinse it, dry it. A lot of indie dyers reskein their yarn and label it or pack it. I don't think any of my advent calendars have been labeled, but you will have to pack it. Some people pack it in little paper bags. Orchid Luxury Yarns had fabric bags, and Botanical Yarns, and the one I got 2 years ago, had like a box with numbered windows, so you could open each one like a traditional advent calendar. So different ways of packing it, and you need some sort of box to send it in. Then you need to pack it all up and print all the address labels, do the postage, ship it, take it to the post office, all that kind of stuff. It's a lot of work. So I can understand that they are expensive because it is a huge amount of work. And that's another thing. When do you actually order an advent calendar? I saw for this year, for 2023, I saw at one indie dyer list their advent calendars in the autumn of last year. So over a year, probably like October, November last year, they were listing their advent calendars for this year. So over a year before you're going to send them out. If you pay in full, that far in advance, you probably will not be covered by your credit card or PayPal guarantee if that business goes out of business, or your advent calendar doesn't get shipped and never arrives. So I don't know what different payment cards, what their policies are, but I've been told that PayPal is 6 months. Anything that you pay for within 6 months, you can put in a request for a refund if it doesn't arrive. But different companies are different rules. I don't know. I haven't actually checked with PayPal what their rules are, but that's what I've been told. So be very, very careful to make sure that you, if you pay outside of that 6 month to a year window, then you may risk losing your money. So be careful about that. So last year, because I paid by installments, some of my payments were probably outside PayPal's payment window. I paid by installments this year as well, but I ordered them much later, so I was probably covered. Maybe the first one I ordered, I might not have been covered for one of the payments, but that was a risk I was aware that I was taking, and that was fine with me at the time. So do bear that in mind, because we are in really difficult financial circumstances, not just in the UK, but in quite a big parts of the world are having financial problems at the moment. Small businesses are really struggling, and it is quite likely that some businesses may go bust. I've seen some businesses, quite a few yarny businesses in the UK, close in the last year. I remember seeing one business that said they were closing, they were going to do their advent calendars. So you just got to make sure that you don't order yours so early that you're going to lose that if that business goes out of business and doesn't ship your advent calendar. There is quite a big level of trust there. Having said that, a lot of indie dyers will dye their yarn over the summer because it's probably a slightly quieter period. So if you wait till now, you may struggle to get one. Although most indie dyers do dye extras, because obviously some might get lost in the post. So I've seen indie dyers who've already shipped their advent calendars saying, right, they've all arrived, and they're going to list the extras. So it is worth keeping an eye on this time of the year if you haven't ordered one, to see if anyone has spares. Or you can even contact your favorite indie dyers and say, if you have any spares, I'm really, really keen. Can you please bear me in mind? They might say yes and email you if they have spares, or they might say, I'm going to announce it on this date, and you just have to try and get one, just like everybody else. So it is, you don't have to buy it in the spring. I also saw some indie dyers who were listing their advent calendars sort of late summer, early autumn. My first one I probably ordered early summer, and the YarnUnique one I didn't order till, I think, in like August or September, but I can't remember. But I also saw people selling yarn advent calendars at Yarndale, which was at the end of September. So you don't have to order them in February, but depending on what you want and how keen you are to get a specific dyer, you may need to. I know that Truly Hooked was posting on Instagram that she was dyeing hers in the summer. Another indie dyer I follow, she was posting that she was dyeing hers now, which for me is a little bit late. It's not one of the ones I ordered, so I'm not worried about it. But if I had ordered one from her, I would be a little bit worried about them arriving on time. So before you get an advent calendar, have a good think about whether it actually fits in your budget. Would you rather spend that money on some yarn that you know what it's going to look like and you can choose exactly what you want? Look at the indie dyers mood boards, their inspiration pictures, read the description carefully and see what's included. Some include extras like project bags or stitch markers. Some had different options. So I think Botanical Yarns last year had one option which was just the yarn, although she did include a few extra bits like, there were stitch markers, there was a pin, I know, but I can't remember now. And Orchidean Luxury Yarns included stitch markers on some of the days, but not every day. But Botanical Yarns also included an option where you could get a project bag as well, but you had to pay extra for that, and I went for the option that just had the yarn because I have a lot of project bags. So that's another thing you need to think about. It's exactly what's included, and check and see that it's what you want. And then do think about where you want to knit with it and whether you actually will knit with it. Also, if you would really like a yarn advent calendar but it just doesn't fit in your budget, there are other options that you can think about. So you can try and get together with friends who are knitters and make ones for each other using yarn that's already in your stash. So if you make a lot of stuff in the similar yarn weight throughout the year, for example, or you can have mixed yarn weights, you just have to agree it with whoever you're swapping with. You could keep leftovers if it's like 10 to 20 grams and wind that up and pack it up with maybe some treats, some other little bits and pieces, and send that off to one of your friends and do a swap. Get together with a group, maybe your local knitting group, an online group you're a part of, or just people you chat with regularly on social media, for example. You need to agree in advance what you're going to do so that you know whether you buy new yarn using stash yarn, the approximate value, things like that. So you don't have somebody who buys all brand new skeins of cashmere and somebody who uses yarn that's been in their stash for 10 years and that's mostly acrylic. So you need to kind of agree on the rules beforehand if you're going to do it as a swap. You can also, I've seen somebody do this where they would put yarn away. So if they finished a shawl, socks maybe, they'd put the yarn away, wrap it up, put it away, and then open it in December, one little packet a day. So it'd be a surprise because they'd forgotten what they'd used and they'd mixed it up or whatever, and you can do it that way. So there are options if you would like an advent calendar, but it's just not within your budget. So let me know, have you ever had a yarn advent calendar? Did you like it? Have you knitted something with it? If so, tell me what you've knitted with it. Do you want to get one but you've been on the fence? Have you decided to get one for next year? Are you having major FOMO for this December and wishing you got one? Let me know what your experiences are with yarn advent calendars and your views on this subject in the comments below. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I will link my video I did earlier this year, beginning of this year, on advent calendars. Are they worth it? And I will also link my fantasy brioche wrap and my new poinsettia blanket pattern. I'll link those below as well. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time.